Hello, everyone. This is Gary Case. I'm going to be your host on the Pink Elephant webinar today. Our topic is a conscious coupling for lean Kaizen, problem solving plus the Dmaic approach. And a key word here is the word conscious, because a lot of times organizations think that they can only look at problem solving maybe in one way, and they may not use other practices that are out there. I know some shops with, that are using ITIL, which I worked with a lot of shops, organizations like that. They approach problem management one way, other shops will approach it another way. It should be really a conscious decision that you're making to say what is going to be the best, options we have to really do problem solving. And this really is a great approach of combining the thought process around problem solving and the Dmaic approach. And this is what we're going to spend our time talking about today. The content that you're going to see today does come out of Pink's Lean IT Foundation course, as well as the Lean IT Kaizen course that is there. I'll try to leave a little bit of time at the very end so we can have a little bit of questions and answers that can be dealt with. So just use the chat would be the appropriate way to do this, and we'll go on ahead. But let's get started here. So first off, from an agenda perspective, we're going to start just kind of a real quick overview. What is Lean IT? Then we'll jump in again, just a high-level overview of the Dmaic approach, also A3 problem-solving report, and then also one of the key things is, as we go through this, understanding what kind of tools that we can really use to help support problem solving, especially around the Dmaic phases that we will be talking about that. So when we first get into it, Lean, from the most part, for those who are familiar with Lean, you know very well up front that it's a way of thinking and acting. It's a mindset shift of how we have to think about, how we work with our customers and how we work internally and how we aggressively just look for, identify and waste and removal of the waste that is going to be out there. So at the center of everything is customer value, which you'll see here pretty soon. And that's one thing we always want to do, is improve that value proposition that IT has a capability to deliver out there to the customer. And then also always thinking from a lean perspective about aiming for perfection, and you'll see that here also a bit, just around we have to have incremental improvements. We always don't have to look for the big bang improvement. We have to go on ahead and continually look. And we refer to those as like daily Kaizen. We refer, plus the Kaizen events, oftentimes where the Dmaic phases are put in place, and we use those. We have to think about getting rid of variability, the peaks and the valleys of how we bring work in, how we have flows across, our value streams, our processes, and that's all about how do we level that out so that we have better ability to deliver that value. The waste is absolutely incredibly important when we take a look at how do we identify that waste that we have and how do we take very key actions to remove that waste. Many organizations, when they do what's considered to be a process cycle efficiency, and again, this is something that we talk about in the Lean IT Foundations course and Kaizen course, but we actually allow you to go through and do a value stream map and actually understand what the process cycle efficiency is on the process that we work in. And around many organizations, the best that you'll find is a process cycle efficiency of 25%. And what that means is that only 25% of our activities and the time we spend on doing activities is considered to be value add. The other 75%, and that's good when I'm saying the 25%, because a lot of organizations are even less than that. The other 75% is made up of, quite often, to be honest, it's wait time in between process steps. It's understanding we have to send things back, so it's rework. It is doing non-value add work. So those are all things that we want to take a look at, when we start thinking about, the Dmaic model. What is there is how do we get rid of this waste, that we have to deal with. And Lean has to involve everyone. It's not, I don't even think you should have a lean department. Everybody should be making up a lean department, and everyone contributes to the identification of waste, identification of problems, helping prioritize problems that are out there, helping make problems visible. Those are key things that we have to really take a look at. So everyone needs to really be involved there. And a key part of Lean also is about being a learning organization. So it is about how do we ensure that we are developing ourselves, number one, as leaders, but then also developing others that are out there. And we always want to think in terms of, from a goals perspective, we always want to have that alignment with the business strategies, goals, objectives, IT strategies, goals, and objectives that we have to really take a look at. And when you think about it, they talk about lean centered on preserving value with less work. Many of us on the webinar today have probably heard the statement or the terms that people use of do more with less. Well, we've been doing that for way too long. So another way to think about it from a lean perspective is do more by doing less. Now think about that, do more by doing less. On the right-hand side is what I refer to as a house of lean. We're not going to go into any detail on this. I could spend an hour just simply talking about this house concept. But at the top, the key is they talk about the quality of what we deliver. They talk about the ability to deliver and the cost associated with that delivery. And in other terms that many people are hearing and having even discussed around their entire organization is better, faster, cheaper. We have got to get better. That's the quality piece. We've got to deliver high quality, but we have to do it faster to be responsive to our business needs now. And by the benefit of actually being able to do that and getting rid of the waste, you'll find that your cost of delivering services actually will go down because we're all focused more on the quality. We're not doing a lot of rework. We're focused on the delivery that is going to be out there. So you don't do lean and say we're going to put in lean in our organization to say we want to increase profits or we're going to decrease costs. You want to do it for the right reasons that are really customer-centered. And as we take a look at that, that's this slide here. So customer value is by far the most important thing that we always look at. But as a part of that, the additional principles that help us get there is we talk about the value stream. So again, we look at within our processes, all of the activities of the processes, and we really assess where are they actually fitting in this. Are they considered to be value add and truly delivering that value that customers are desiring? Is it necessary non-value add? We have things that we just have to do, but it really, from a customer's perspective, does not add value. And then also we just have the non-value add. And that's what we want to be looking for is you want to eliminate the non-value add, minimize necessary non-value add, and really optimize and really get as much as you can out of the value add. And that's looking at that whole value stream. And we have to take a look at that value stream also and look at it from a flow perspective left to right. So we talk about the flow, let's say from development to the customer delivery. And we have to go through and look at all of that. And so, Lean takes a look at this, and they talk in terms of, terms that Toyota production system coined was just in time. So in other words, you want just in time to be arrivals of whether it's demand or into the next activity, so that we are going on ahead, reducing those peaks in the valleys that we have, and so that therefore we go on ahead and have better flow. And that's where a lot of organizations, when they're looking at what's happening, especially on the development side of the house, but it's gaining a lot of credibility on the operations side also, is a Kanban board, so that they can make work visible and they can see where the bottlenecks and the constraints really are. Also, Lean, from a principle, works on a pull perspective. So in other words, the demand should trigger the activities that we're going to be doing, so that, again, we don't have inventory stacking up. And yes, in IT, we even have inventory. They may be called incidents, requests, projects, changes, or whatever that we have to think about. Then we also have the aim for perfection or first time right as a key, principle here. And this is absolutely incredibly important. And I always find it interesting that in organizations, they always seem to be able to find the time, money, and resources to do something a second, third, and fourth time, but they never can find the time, money, and resources to do it right the first time. So again, that aim for perfection is a key thing, and that's what helps drive the quality that we want to really go on ahead and be in a position to deliver out there to the customer, because that's what they're really looking for overall. As you go through, we'll spend a little time here on the Dmaic phases that's here. So as you can see, Dmaic, it's define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So the define, and these are all important, and you do need to go through the steps in the same order. You can't be skipping around. Define as the first phase here really is it's all about the problem statement and problem definition. And, making sure there's clarity on what the problem is, making sure that from a defined perspective that we can clearly articulate why is the current condition no longer acceptable. And also what you're going to be doing as a part of that problem statement, you're going to ensure that everybody does agree to that's a problem, and you're going to find a sponsor for that, especially if it's going to be a Kaizen event. Then you get back into the measure, and this is where we do all the data collection. And again, it's important that we don't start analyzing the data, because that comes in phase 3. So we're simply collecting the data that we have. And in some cases, companies want to go back and they want to look at their, let's say, their ITSM tool as the data source, but in reality, their tools do not hold all the data. So we have to get additional facts and go out for additional other data points that are out there, such as quite often I get into the discussions around are all incidents logged, and they go, well, yes, of course they are. But then you talk to people on second and third level support, and I ask, do you get customers calling you directly? And they go, yeah. And do you log it? They go, well, I'm supposed to, but I probably don't as much as I should. So you have a lot of lost data. So this measure phase is very important, that you have to go out and collect the data from whatever sources are going to be available. And in some cases, you have to maybe make some assumptions around some data elements that you have to have there. Okay. Let me, the other part about this section here is the validate the data. That's going to be very important. So a key thing that I always talk about is how do we ensure that the data makes sense and go about the validation. The third part that we get into is in the analyze phase, and that's where we actually do the root cause analysis. So whether you're an ITIL shop, you do problem management, that's a key part of what we want to do is root cause. This is where you analyze all of your data that you have. You're analyzing it to look for waste opportunities. You're analyzing it to, go through and take a look at the overall aspect of any trends. And then you have to even dig deeper on that and analyze, is this a good trend or a bad trend? Is this something that we have to go on ahead and kind of manage? So you also may have some certain hypothesis at this point that, again, you have to, I refer to it as prove or disprove. And that may be a hypothesis, could be we think, and then fill in the blank, it feels like, it seems, and fill in the blank as a hypothesis. And we have to be able to say, through our analysis of the data, can we prove or disprove what that analyze phase really is? And then we get into the improve phase. So the number one output on analyze, I'm going to go back to that for a second, is really the root cause. And you may find in the analysis that you're going through that there may be multiple root causes that you have to address that is there. And you'll see that there's tools that can help us with each one of these phases, and we'll talk a little bit about that because I do want to spend some time there. Under the improve phase, the number one objective that we want here is really to implement the improvement. But before we can do that, we have to identify alternatives and options that we may have to improvements. And when I say that, I think it's critical to keep in mind that when we think about lean, we think about problem solving, always look at it from a perspective of that you can fully resolve something, you can partially resolve something, or you can simply improve. And it doesn't mean we always have to go out and resolve everything all the time fully. If we simply do partial resolution or we simply improve, that is a lean mindset. That's what we want to take a look at. I was working with a customer a couple weeks ago, and as an example, they had an improvement opportunity, and they came out of their Kaizen event that they had 6 improvement opportunities. They were able to implement 5 of these opportunities immediately. The 6th one they could not implement because there wasn't anyone to step up and do the funding for that. But they didn't do everything they wanted to, but they definitely had very close to a full resolution, definitely a partial resolution, and they really did some great improvements of what that was all around. So as they go through, when we think about that improve, we ultimately look for different alternatives, we look for options, and then we have to go in and recommend what we would want to do, and then go on ahead and do the improvement or improvements that we want to put in place there. And then control is a key area also. And so that's basically how do we get this embedded in the organization? How do we, if we made a change and we put it in, how do we ensure we don't fall back to the old way of doing things? So how do we embed it? How do we sustain it? How do we maintain it? Anchor it is another word you often see, so that it becomes a part of people's DNA and they wouldn't think about doing it any differently. That is there. And that's a key thing. And, of course, part of control, you're going to have documentation. Training is going to be a big part of it. But another part is really around monitoring. So how do we ensure we have the ability to monitor, measure, and report against how well we're performing on our process? And in some cases, that may be new because we're looking for measures that maybe have not been created and measured in the past. So we're looking about how we can go on ahead and do that. And then a key part of Lean also is all about being a learning organization. So they talk in terms all the time about shared lessons learned. And the only thing I add to that is sharing lessons learned is a great step, but I think it's even more important that we actually use the lessons learned that are out there. So those are key things that we have to go on ahead and take a look at. So Dmaic is truly based around the Dmaic model of plan, do, check, act. And the control of the define phase is actually kind of an add-on of how do we ensure that whatever we take action on, that we have the control mechanisms in place. Now, I work in a lot of organizations, and they'll be open with me and just say, honestly, Gary, we plan and do. We plan and do. They don't do the checking and the acting. Do they have metrics? Yes. Do they have aspects of what they're looking for? Yes. But they're not looking at it from an improvement perspective. They're just simply reporting the results of what is out there. And in many cases, they don't even have the target on the results diagram, chart, or report, so you don't know if they were successful or not. And then there's clearly in many organizations, there is no action of how we're going to improve so that we can go on ahead and ensure that we meet. And so it's based on the PDCA, but the Dmaic really does take you through that you have to do all of those, and then you also have as the last part there that we go through and we do the the control piece that is going to be very critical. Again, A3 thinking. So an A3 is again a concept. It comes out again, a Toyota production system that's really referred to as Lean today, what they're really looking for. And really all this is, it's a single piece of paper, and it was based on a European size of paper that is out there. It's close to 11 by 17 for US. It's so that you have everything documented on that single sheet. You're very concise. It shows you're understanding what you're doing. It is making it very visible, because that's one thing about Lean is you always want to make work visible through visual management boards, etc. And A3s can have not only text on it, they can have charts and diagrams and different aspects to it to help with the visualization is really what we're looking for. Then we look at the basic A3 itself. So again, in the classes, we go into a lot more detail on these, and you get to experience them as practical usage and everything. But the basic report is a very good format, and you'll see different formats that are out there. This is a very common one. So in other words, you're always going to want to look at, the A3, who owns it. You want to have the date that this is being prepared and started, I should say, because it's not all going to be done in just a few hours. You may go back and build on your A3 actually as you go through the Dmaic model, which is the best practice. So you may start off under problem definition and only deal with the top 3 there of the background, the current condition, and the future state goals. And then as you go through and you start doing your data collection, that may force you to go back and take a look at, especially update your current condition. And so your background is basically, why are we actually talking about this? How did we get to selecting this as a particular problem? Current condition is just your as is. And the key here is that's where you want to have your problem, analysis around, not the true root cause analysis, but why is this no longer acceptable is what you want to really have in there. And the background can be where you include your problem description, and then you have your future target state of where you want to be. And again, just be careful that you're, make them achievable. So the SMART of specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound is a good way to look at that. And then you have the analysis, and that's basically the root cause that you come up with, proposed options or alternatives that you have, and make sure you do have the recommendation. Just don't come to the party and just say this is what we could do. Make sure that recommendation is out there. What is your high-level plan? And then going ahead and make sure that those are getting implemented. And then what do you need to follow up around? And it could be that there may require additional training. It could be configuration of a tool. It could be that you can only do partial resolution, like I mentioned on that one particular customer site that is there. So as we go through, I'm keeping an eye on the time here. When we look at the Dmaic methodology and everything that we've kind of talked about, there's multiple tools that we can use that are out there. And if you see at the bottom there, they talk about within define. So we're going to use a SIPOC, voice of customer, and a critical to quality. The SIPOC is basically just documenting who are the suppliers that provide input to the process, what is that actual input that's provided, what's the process steps or activities, what's the output of the process, and then also who's the customer of the output. The voice of the customer is really reaching out, getting requirements and wishes, and the critical to quality is really prioritizing those in an order from a customer's perspective. So all of this define is oftentimes driven from the voice of the customer aspect that we always have to be looking at. The measure is, again, this is where we can identify the quick wins. This is where we're getting our data. So we do a big part of measure is a value stream map for a process to see how well it's flowing, to understand where our opportunities for improvement are, where the waste is, and then also start identifying what we could have, if we would remove the waste. And this is where we come in. Getting just that data. We analyze it in the analyze phase. The Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, what could be potential causes, largest to smallest, and once you get to 80%, that's what you really focus on. And that is setting this up because it's going to be used as a part of analysis, because now we know what is making up that 80%, and it could be just 2 or 3 items, because that's the 80-20 rules, oftentimes what happens. So we can actually then do some analysis based off of the Pareto chart. Ishikawa, or a fishbone diagram, cause and effect is another name for it. So those are things, the 5 whys exercise. And if you want to find a good, real example of 5 whys, Just go out and Google Washington Monument 5 Whys, and you'll get a real good example of what that is. In Improve, they talk about the 5 S's, and that basically is just SOAR, that stabilize, shine, standardize, and sustain. And then also we have to prioritize what those improvement opportunities we have. And then under control, we talk about poka-yoke, which is, again, a lot of Japanese terms come into this, and that is just simply mistake proofing or error proofing. So in other words, how can we put things in place that's going to be a little bit better, that's going to be there so we can not have to struggle. And the SOPs are simply just standard operating procedures that we really have to take a look at. And then, so as we go through, then just as a reminder, then I'll get into the questions that I'm seeing here. So think about where you are on your Lean IT journey. If you're just starting off, then there is the Lean IT Foundations course. If you already have some of that, then once you get certified in that, then you can go through the Lean Kaizen certification. And in each one of these courses, you get practical experience of using some of the tools. And then there's the leadership course for those who want to really be the leaders. And this is all about yourself. This is what do you want to do to improve your leadership skills. Lean IT will continue to be a topic of discussion that we have at our Pink Forum event coming up August 19th through the 21st. That's going to be in Scottsdale. Then we have our annual conference, Pink 19, and that'll be February 17th through the 20th. Also, we have another webinar coming up real soon that you have the positive side of an endless loop. How leaders create a Kaizen continuous improvement mindset. That's Thursday, May 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and Troy Dmaic, that many of you probably know and is a great person, that is going to be out there. And then just make sure you do register for your free MyPink account, and there's access information down below. But with that, let me go back and see what we have here. I got one question. So the question is it more important for incident management to retrieve the root cause of an incident, or should problem management retrieve the root cause of an incident? I'm not quite sure how you're using the word retrieve, but oftentimes if you're talking about get to the root cause, discover the root cause, all of that, then I think it's going to be important that problem management as a process that potentially maybe could include some people from incident management doing the root cause of an incident. But typically, it's a different skill set that's involved, and that's why it typically resides in problem management, that you may not have that skill set on the incident management side. Also remember that in most organizations, there's a lot of demand on the incident management team. So when you talk about incident management starts at the service desk, and that's where you have your different skill sets. But then it goes to level 2 and level 3, and your problem management process is actually going to be pulling people from level 2 and level 3 support groups to be doing the root cause analysis, because they have the skill sets to do that. And ultimately, they may say, well, we don't have time for that because we're too busy firefighting. Well, they're too busy firefighting because they're dealing with all the incidents. Let's spend some time doing problem management. And one of the things that I find is organizations quite often will only do problem management activities on like major incidents, and they may touch priority 2 incidents, but most of them, their focus is simply priority 1. Your gold mine, where you especially have a lot of recurring incidents, are literally starting in 2, but for the most part are in priority 3. That's your gold mine, and that should be an emphasis from a problem management perspective, is how do we identify and remove those recurring incidents, because that is do more by doing less. You get rid of those recurring, you get rid of those, and in Lean, they look at incident management as a failure stream, because they're saying, let's aim for perfection so we minimize the number of incidents that are there. Let me check one other area here. Okay. Let me Go back. It looks like that's all I'm seeing right now. So anyway, well, thank you. I've got, it looks like just a little less than a minute here. I want to thank everyone very much. I'm sure you'll be getting an email out shortly from us with links for the slide and also where to find the audio. Everybody take care of yourself. Have a great day and just continue on your lean journey. It's a start date. There is no end date. Thank you very much.